All right, Brooke Pryor covers the Steelers. She is our favorite, and she is with us here on the Adam Gold Show at BE Pryor on Twitter. Covers Pittsburgh for ESPN. So, how has the 4 games of the Russell Wilson era gone? It hasn't always been great offensively, but, man, the team keeps winning.
That they do. And first of all, I want to let you know, it's okay that you added in an extra win to the Steelers. A couple weeks ago, I gave them an extra loss. I said they were 7-3, and they were not. So that's just, what are records anyway?
That's true.
I mean, at this point in the season, the points are made up, the scores don't matter. Just kidding, everything counts. Yeah, look.
Sounded like you were talking about college football there for a second.
I am. The Steelers share a facility with Pitt, so it's easy to get them mixed up. But, I mean, the thing about the Steelers right now in this Russell Wilson era is that it does a little bit resemble Russell Wilson with the Seahawks in that he's got a really dominant defense. That is what, I mean, it was the defense and Chris Boswell that helped them beat the Ravens. I mean,
right.
This was an out-of-body defensive performance by the Steelers, especially a guy like Peyton Wilson who has that interception in just the most textbook perfect pass defense. Didn't even see the ball. His arm was just in exactly the right place. I mean, that's how you coach that. That was incredible. But, I mean, that performance to me showed the depth of this defense and how good they are just across the board. Offensively, though, we do need to be honest that this offense the last 2 weeks has regressed a little bit from the first 2 weeks of the Russell Wilson era. Mm-hmm. And I wasn't quite sure what direction things would go after the Giants game, right? Because the Jets game, which was Russ's first start, you could see that there was some rust, but he was at least throwing up the deep ball. He was giving his receivers a chance. They were coming back to it. They were making catches on some imperfectly thrown balls. I felt like against the Giants, he cleaned that up a little bit. But then against the Commanders, the first 3 quarters were not great. And I think the fourth quarter largely papered over a really inefficient and inaccurate first 3 quarters. And, of course, he has that moonball touchdown to Mike Williams. You can forgive a lot with that.
Right.
And then this last week, to me, was I wonder if it is a bad game or a bad sign for Russell Wilson and the Steelers offense that, again, the accuracy wasn't there. There weren't as many moon balls. And then to me, the flashing red light of what does this mean? This could be a problem is the interception that he threw in the end zone that was intended for Darnell Washington. If Darnell Washington was 7'11" instead of 6'7", they needed points in the red zone, right? To that point, they had only had field goals. He wanted to score a touchdown, and he forced it. He held on to the ball too long, scrambles backwards, and then just loops this alley-oop pass to allegedly, again, Darnell Washington. But as Mike Tomlin said this week when we asked him, what needed to be different? What would you have liked to see maybe Darnell do? And Mike said, I would have liked to see Russell Wilson not throw that pass.
Right.
That, to me, suggests that he wants Russell Wilson to play within the offense, to not do too much. When he plays within the offense, they're great. When he starts pressing, things go sideways, and he's got to not press. But they also have got to be more efficient in the red zone. They didn't score a touchdown, like I said last week. Their red zone efficiency is very bad, one of the worst in the league. The only team that has a worse red zone efficiency are the Cleveland Browns. So I hope you like field goals Thursday night. That's what it's shaping up to be.
Well, again, this is not the first time we've seen Pittsburgh kick just a boatload of field goals in a game, but 6 got it done, especially when the other guy's missing field goals. And when Justin Tucker misses field goals, it makes Eddie Pinheiro of the Panthers the most accurate field goal kicker in NFL history, which nobody had that on their bingo card. That's apparently the new phrase. Everything is a bingo card now. When was the last time you played bingo before I move on?
Oh, great question.
Yeah.
Regular bingo or like drinking game bingo? Because one of those was far more recent
Really?
than the other.
I've never played drinking game bingo.
You know, like when you're watching something, whether it be a debate or a game or something where you're going to hear a lot of the same phrases.
I have been known to drink during a debate,
often.
but not because of playing bingo. I need to move on.
When it's interactive.
Brooke Pryor from ESPN is joining us here on the Adam Gold Show. She covers the Steelers. you're right about Pittsburgh's offense. I think the more troubling thing for me looking at it is that, at least in the first couple of weeks, it looked like Russell Wilson had made it easier for them to run the ball. And it didn't look like it against Baltimore. I know Najee Harris had one big run, but for the most part, he averaged about 2 yards a carry, other than that 131-yard run. So, to me, the real benefit for having Wilson versus Justin Fields is how it impacts Najee Harris, Warren, the running game, but it just didn't have that effect against the Ravens.
Right, absolutely. I think that you're spot on with that, because that is the thing about Russell Wilson, right, is that because he is willing to stretch the field and through a couple games was really good at doing so, it did open everything up. But then it felt like the Commanders and Ravens figured something out, hey, not necessarily the Emperor has no clothes, but maybe the Emperor is wearing fewer clothes than we thought, and we'll let Russ test the deep ball. We'll give him that option, but we're really going to clog up the middle. And they did that. I do think that the Steelers have something good when they mix in Jaylen Warren to that group. I think sometimes, though, Arthur Smith overthinks it. But, I mean, to me, the most troubling part of this run game is that they can't seem to convert the 3rd and 1, the 4th and 1. When it gets into short yardage situations later in downs, they just can't get the push, even when they're bringing in an extra lineman. And not only that, sometimes they try to sneak with Russell Wilson, and that didn't go anywhere. Mm-hmm. So I don't know what the problem is or how to solve it, but they are just not getting enough push. They're not designing it the right way. Something has gone wrong on these short yardage situations, and that's a problem. You've got to have that. That and the red zone inefficiency are two things that I think could hold this team back, which, if I'm a defensive player, that is wildly frustrating because they're getting contributions up and down the depth chart. This is a defense that is built for the playoffs, but if their offense can't score points, then we've got a Steelers team from the Matt Canada era, and that's not why you fired Matt Canada. That's not why you blew things up, brought in 2 different quarterbacks, all of these things, drafted all these O-linemen just to kind of circle back and be in the same spot.
Brooke Pryor, ESPN, covers the Steelers at BE Pryor on Twitter. What did you see from the Ravens, though? Because it is amazing to me. A few weeks ago, we had Bridget Condon of NFL Network on, and we were just talking about who are the best teams in the league. And she definitively said the Baltimore Ravens. And, I mean, I think they're really good. But there's something about them that is missing. I don't know what it is because they have weapons at receiver. They got multiple tight ends. Lamar Jackson is an MVP candidate, if not a favorite. He or Josh Allen probably are the favorites right now for that. So you've seen them once. You'll see them again later. But what did you notice about the Ravens that maybe might be missing?
The one thing this team is missing is discipline, which is crazy to say for a John Harbaugh team. It's not like this is a first-year coach or something like that. But the main issue last week against the Steelers is that the Ravens beat themselves. They had so many penalties. It was kind of insane, the number of pre-snap penalties. I mean, the missed field goals, that's not necessarily a coaching thing or a discipline thing, but it just felt like it was a sloppy performance by the Ravens. There were a lot of self-inflicted wounds, and the Steelers capitalized on that. I mean, in no other situation should a team that, the Steelers had, 3 turnovers, 4, with the missed field goals, whatever it was, the Steelers weren't scoring touchdowns. They were only getting field goals off of those. When you have an MVP candidate on the other side of the ball, you should be able to overcome that, right?
Yeah.
And they just couldn't. I think that there was at one point an illegal man downfield. There may have been an illegal shift. There were just so many things that I look at from a Ravens team that has all the pieces. This just can't happen. This is a waste. And then, I mean, you have a situation like the 2-point conversion that failed. why isn't Derrick Henry on the field? Like that's a coaching mistake, in my opinion. It's an astronomical mistake. But I think that some of it is overthinking. You're trying to get too cute right there in that moment. And if they get that 2-point conversion, I think that the Ravens go on to win that game, because the way that they were able to march down the field there on that drive shows me that, like, they have what it takes to be a great team, to be a great offense. So that they were getting the ball rolling. I think they score that 2-point conversion. Maybe we go to overtime. Who knows? But it just feels like they are holding themselves back. And also, Mike Tomlin is a wizard and is just really good at beating Lamar Jackson. They could be having the worst season ever, and Mike Tomlin will still beat Lamar Jackson.
All right, final thing for Brooke Pryor, ESPN NFL reporter, covers the Steelers at BE Pryor. You used to cover the Chiefs. I know they took their first loss. They're 9-1. The numbers on this offense are underwhelming, to say the least. Patrick Mahomes is really performing like an ordinary quarterback until it gets to the fourth quarter, where he's I think he leads the NFL in fourth quarter comebacks. He leads the NFL in game-winning drives. They couldn't pull it out against Buffalo. Credit to the Bills. If you were covering the Chiefs or a Chiefs fan, would you be concerned at this point?
I mean, conventional wisdom tells you yes, because of the way that they're winning, that it takes, a blocked field goal and just other kind of chaos. And I've covered a team like that before. That was the 2020 Steelers, where they started off 11-0, and then the wheels came off in the back half of the season. The difference is, though, Ben Roethlisberger playing with like an arm and a half is not the same thing as Patrick Mahomes.
Right.
And so he defies logic. You can take away all of his receivers, you can reduce his protection, you can have injuries at running back, and he's going to find a way to bring this team back. He's going to put the team on his shoulders and haul them across the line. And even if he's not getting help from the offense, he's getting a huge lift from the defense. Chris Jones is having a great season. I think he's a defensive MVP candidate. He is playing the way that they need him to. And Spags has really, when I was covering the team, Bob Sutton was the defensive coordinator, and the defense was the Achilles heel of this team, and that has completely flipped under Spags. And so I think the combination of Spagnuolo's defense and Patrick Mahomes means that you can never count this team out, which is so incredibly frustrating if you're not a Chiefs fan, because it just feels inevitable, right? Like, great, we're going to go through this whole season. There's going to be all these storylines. Patrick Mahomes is human. He's pedestrian, all of these things. Oh, surprise, he's in the playoffs. Oh, he has sprained his ankle and he's playing on one leg. And, oh, look, there's a Super Bowl parade going through Kansas City. So until I see a team beat them in the playoffs, the Chiefs are still going to be my favorite, because that's just what they do. As frustrating as it is, that is just what happens. So I need to see it to believe it, that another team could beat them. Obviously, the Bengals did a couple years ago, but that has been the exception and not the rule.
No question about it. And by the way, the numbers, other than the total of interceptions, the numbers for Mahomes last year and this year look very, very similar, and they won the Super Bowl last year. Brooke Pryor, at BE Pryor on Twitter, ESPN.com, covers the Pittsburgh Steelers, and we love her. Brooke, thank you so much. Best to you. Happy Thanksgiving. We'll talk to you after the holiday.
Absolutely. If I wake up from my turkey nap, we will absolutely talk.
Okay,
Have
then.
a good one.
All right, take care.